Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a wonderful Friday. And today on the show, we of course have one of our favorite guests, and that is a regular here on the program, and that will be the one, the only, Mr. Ralph Bond. He is our science and tech trends correspondent as we talk about everything that's kind of futuristic, shows really the highlights of technology as opposed to the downsides of technology, which we cover the other 29 days of the month. So today is always fun, it's upbeat, and it's going to be good. All right, so a couple of things before we get started here, including computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find the cheat notes for today. So if you want to follow along, or if after the show you'd like to check something out in further detail, then Ralph does a really good job putting together every article, every story that we do, and including links so that you can chase them down if that's what you choose. If you don't want to sit back and just relax. Also there, you'll find things such as the social media contests, as well as reviews and articles. We have a review up of the Xiro drone, Xiro drone. We had them on the show a couple of months ago, and we finally got the review up of their mini drone, I believe. And we also have a review of a canless air system. So those chemical kind of cans, the can dusters that you're not supposed to shake, but everyone I've ever seen ever shakes them. Those. It's a replacement system for that. And, just a couple more things to check out while you're there. So there's the social media contest brought to you by Logitech. There's the live video stream, which of course you can also find at twitch.tv, and so much more. But I digress. Let's go ahead and get started. So as I said before, Ralph Bond, he is no stranger to our program, and he comes on the show once a month to talk science and technology trends. And so let's go ahead and bring him on. Ralph, how you doing? Welcome back onto Computer America.
Hey, great to be back. And boy, I'll tell you, up here in the Northwest, we finally got our heat wave over, and the smoke from all these fires is blowing away, while the East Coast and the central part of our country has been just drenched in rain. We've been in a horrible drought on the West Coast, and fires, lots of fires. So I'm happy to report that. And then one more thing I want to say, a special comment for today. Sure. In light of Senator John McCain's family's announcement that he's going to discontinue his medical support systems and stuff. And boy, God bless him, and I hope the best for him and his family as they go into this, what appears to be the final phase of his story. But what an amazing American.
Yeah, I mean, it really does fit the character of John McCain. That
I agree.
He gets to choose really every aspect of his life, and like you said, it's hard to read, but also really proud of what John McCain has done. But and also I'm glad that the fires have cleared up. You are no longer the matchstick capital of the world, and I'm really happy to hear that, because now we're catching all the smoke, and I don't feel like changing smoke detector batteries. So
oh my goodness, terrible.
This is all a good thing. And so why don't we go ahead and say, Ralph, welcome back on. So for everyone out there who maybe, hey, this is the first time catching, I mean, lately we've had a lot of new listeners, and we love to hear that. We just passed a pretty big milestone on a platform that I don't really associate with podcasts. And, like I said yesterday, we just got approval to be on Spotify. So we'll let you know when that's finally pushed through.
Oh, great.
But we also hit a milestone on SoundCloud, which, SoundCloud, great way for new artists to share their new music, but not exactly the number one place to go for like an hour-long episode of a podcast. So we're happy that people are on SoundCloud are really, liking what we do here. So for anyone new out there, Ralph, would you please tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am quote unquote semi-retired now after about, close to 35-year career in high-tech marketing communications, press relations, and all that stuff. Again, all focused on high-tech, starting with mini computers in Orange County in the very early 1980s through Rockwell International Semiconductor Division, which was at the time one of the darlings of American semiconductors when Intel was coming along, of course, but still hadn't become quite the superpower it has become. And we made fax chips for the Japanese, and it was an amazing thing that an American semiconductor company was making parts that were being used by the Japanese at that time. Again, roll the tape all the way back to the early 1980s. And then, I went from there, like I said, to Rockwell Semiconductors, and went through some PR agency work and so forth, where I got to know a lot of the people in the press. And then I rolled over to, a nearly 14-year stint with IntelCorporation, moved up here to Oregon, outside of the Portland, Oregon area, where Intel to this day still has its largest number of employees and facilities and factories and all that kind of good stuff, and had a wonderful career with them until, unfortunately, I was part of a massive worldwide work reduction in October of 2006. Then I rolled over after doing some project work here and there and everywhere, rolled over in the summer of 2007 to Autodesk. And if you're not familiar with Autodesk, you may know the product AutoCAD, so computer-aided design. And I worked for 10 plus years with their architecture, engineering, and construction division. Fell in love with the technology as applied to that industry, and then reached the golden age of 65 this past September. And in November of last year, decided to go quote unquote semi-retired. I still would like to do some project work and so forth. So that's a snapshot of my background.
Yeah. Hey, and a very illustrious career in technology, and also conveying ideas to the average person. That seemed to be your forte at Intel, where we first met you, and of course, at Autodesk, that was also your job to, really get a point across. So that's why we like you in your current position here at Computer America, being science and tech trends, where we noticed over a while that you really gravitated towards stories that, like we said at the beginning, really show the some of the benefits that technology is bringing about. So why don't we go ahead and tell the folks about the show notes, and then let's go ahead and get started with story number one.
Yeah, absolutely. So get your show notes, come out to the Computer America website. You can see the link to get the show notes. The show notes are a Word document with embedded links and pictures and all this good stuff, and it supplements what we're doing. What I do is I go out each month and I look for what I think are interesting stories, the kind of things that are really often sometimes very significant, but maybe don't make the big mainstream press. And a lot of times science stories don't, right? You might hear about a new Apple iPhone, or you might hear about some issue with Google or whatever. The big stories make it to the mainstream. But these kinds of stories sometimes don't. And I look for those kind of stories. And story number one is a great example. It comes from Business Insider magazine, but the Australian edition. So Business Insider Australia, a story by Simon Thompson. And the headline is Australian scientists may have solved one of the biggest problems holding back hydrogen-powered cars, right? And we know, hydrogen-powered cars, this whole idea has been floating around for years, right? And it's just been an issue of practicality in terms of the fuel. And so what they're saying here is this bunch in Australia may have come up with something that may be a great solution. So I'll read into the story and we'll dive right into it. It says, one of the biggest challenges facing the hydrogen fuel industry is this: its transport and storage, right, may have been solved. So one of these biggest problems, transport and storage, may have been solved by scientists at, it's an outfit that's got an acronym, CSIRO. So I'll just call it Cicero going forward, okay? May have been solved by scientists at Cicero, paving the way for a fuel export industry from Australia. So remember, this is from an Australian publication, so it's going to have a very Australia focus. With some of the world's biggest car companies, including Toyota, Hyundai, and BMW, betting on hydrogen as a future fuel source, the Australian National Science Agency has developed membrane technology to refuel cars using ammonia. And hang on, this will all make sense in a bit here. Two fuel cell vehicles, a Toyota, and I think it's pronounced Mirai, I'm not sure, it's Mirai,
Okay.
and Hyundai Nexo have been successfully refueled using ultra-high purity hydrogen produced in Queensland. Now, unlike electric charge cars, hydrogen cell vehicles can be refueled in minutes with a range of up to twice that of electric vehicles running on batteries. So that's why everyone's wanted the hydrogen cars, right? Technological advances are also helping to drive down the production costs of renewable hydrogen to make it cost competitive with oil-based fuel. Now, Cicero Chief Executive Dr. Larry Marshall says the technology via a modular unit paves the way for bulk hydrogen to be transported in the form of ammonia. Let's repeat that. Bulk hydrogen to be transported in the form of ammonia using existing infrastructure. That's another barrier to electric, right? Then reconverted back to hydrogen at the point of use, plugging the gap in the technology chain to supply fuel cell vehicles. So that's the big paragraph there. That's the one that's like, wow, okay. And here's a quote from Dr. Larry Marshall. He says, "This is a watershed moment for energy, and we look forward to applying Cicero innovation to enable this exciting, renewably sourced fuel and energy storage medium a smoother path to the market," he said. And he goes on, he says, "I'm delighted to see a strong collaboration in the application of Cicero know-how to what is a key part of the overall energy mix." So, this is definitely, I think and hope, not just a false alarm, but something that may really break open the world of hydrogen cars. The article goes on to say, yeah, go ahead, Ben.
And it's very interesting that ammonia was able to work itself in there. And I'm sure that if I actually paid attention in chemistry, I would know why ammonia would be the best, liquid state, because obviously they're going for a liquid, something stable, and something that they could transport, like like gasoline, like we currently do. It's just strange, and I wouldn't have thought of it, but I'm glad that they did. So,
it's interesting. Yeah, exactly. So going on, it says the Cicero design membrane separates ultra-high purity hydrogen from ammonia. There's the key. While blocking all other gases. That's the significance of this membrane they've created. It solves the problem of the currently complex and relatively expensive movement of bulk hydrogen by using liquid ammonia. Now, I'm not going to pretend to say that I fully understand this from a chemistry or science point of view, because I'm not educated in science and engineering and so forth. I'm just a layperson who, because of my years of exposure to high-tech community and technology, just fell in love with it. So I don't have the answer for you here, but that's pretty significant how they can do this, the transportation, the movement of bulk hydrogen by using liquid ammonia. And it goes on to say UK-based industrial gas multinational BOC has partnered with Cicero on the project, which received 1.7 million, that would be Australian dollars, 1.7 million from the Australian federal government's Science and Industry Endowment Fund, matched by the Science Agency. And it goes on to say, following today's demonstration in Brisbane, story was posted on August the 8th, by the way, Cicero plans to create several larger scale demonstrations in Australia and abroad with a view to creating an export industry. The science body is also working on other parts of the hydrogen technology chain, including water electrolysis and hydrogen production. And then it concludes, while hydrogen-powered cars have been a major focus in Hyundai's homeland of South Korea, I didn't know that. That's interesting. With a 5-year plan to put 16,000 vehicles on the road, the technology is still under trial in Australia, and a lack of infrastructure to refuel has been the key problem. And again, that's the significance of what they're saying here. They believe, the Cicero bunch believes, they've solved that, transportation of the fuel problem. And the final sentence here is Toyota is looking to begin importing the Mirai in Australia as soon as 2019, following a 3-year trial of 5 of the hydrogen-powered cars locally since 2016. So Yeah, I mean, this is a great example of the kind of stories that really catch my eye because I go, oh, okay, we've all heard about hydrogen as being maybe something for cars, but then there was this problem and that problem. And when I saw this may have solved one of the biggest problems holding back hydrogen-powered cars, I said, I got to read this. I got to share this.
Yeah, and I really do like the fact that Australia is getting on board. Obviously, if they can produce their own hydrogen to even export it themselves. I mean, one thing I think Australia has going for it is, and you wouldn't think about it, but the geography. I just had to quickly Google how many Australians live within cities, but about 90% of the population of Australia lives in the same coastal cities, the same
exactly.
eastern. So I would assume that any kind of market penetration, like if you can get hydrogen fuel, I guess distribution set up in one city, you're looking at a lot of the population suddenly having access to this technology. It's not like America where if you put it in New York, that's great, but there's still 90% of the population you still have to contend with.
Right.
So I really do like that, and I have another kind of question for you. Do you recall which other nation is working on hydrogen fuel, and when other people are really going to be able to notice it? Like, do you know who had talk of it?
I'm gonna guess.
Sure.
Okay. China?
Nope. Well, yeah, probably them. I think they make most of the hydrogen fuel cells currently, but the ones really trying to put it into effect is Japan. And I don't know what it is about hydrogen fuel cell in coastal cities, but the buses that are going to be ferrying people all over the country with the Olympics coming up, the 2020 Olympics. All of the buses are going to be run on hydrogen fuel cell.
Oh, very cool. Okay, that explains too. That links back to the article because they were talking about Toyota's real keen interest in this.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's that on top of that, and then another key piece, just because this is something I recall, the buses that they were going to run hydrogen fuel cell off of, they're obviously going to have bigger battery packs. They're going to use them in situations of emergency, much like the tsunami that they had with the Fukushima power plant going down. In times of emergency, they can use the hydrogen fuel cell buses as mobile generators, and they can actually hook up other devices to the bus to then run off. So it's kind of like a win-win. Like, you couldn't really do that with a gas bus. So I'm excited because we talk all about electric cars all day long. They're still here, they're coming, but hydrogen fuel cell, even though it may not be getting the limelight, it's good to see it still progressing.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons I just jumped on this story. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about your mentioning of the buses for the Olympics and all that, and probably where it could be a really practical first place to implement this would be hydrogen fuel municipal buses, right? So take, I don't know, Portland, Oregon, where I'm nearby Portland, Oregon. They have a massive bus system, which in fact they just decided to make it a 24-hour system, which it had not been up until recently. And so municipalities could use this membrane technology and the ammonia and the transfer and all this and set up their own little thing, because all those buses go and refuel at their centralized zone, right? And that might be one way to begin getting hydrogen into really practical day-to-day use if this transportation of the fuel problem is overcome by this new innovative technology from Australia. So something to think about.
Yeah, and the technology can really seem to be the idea that it's cheaper and more effective to transport the fuel and much more stable. So I guess getting high and really you wouldn't think that, because hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. And you think,
and isn't the output, the tailpipe output, so to speak, is just water, right? Water vapor. Is that right?
Yeah, the hydrogen that is expelled combines with the oxygen and obviously H2O. You get water vapor. That is
nice.
So
I'd like more of that to end our drought in the West. That works for me.
Well, and there's also some talk about that being a bad thing, but I don't think, and because water vapor is actually a greenhouse gas. It does. Yeah, it if there's more water vapor in the atmosphere, it causes more of the sun's rays to be trapped. and blah blah blah. But I don't think anyone can pretend that H2O is worse of a pollutant than say
Well, yeah,
carbon dioxide or something like, or carbon
I think I'll
monoxide.
take my chances with good old water.
Right, exactly. So there's that story, and again, links to everything in the show notes if you'd like to
Yes.
follow up on this. Really looking forward to, personally, I'm really looking forward to the Olympics to see how
Yeah.
effective the buses are going to be, and
It would be a great world showcase for that.
yeah,
And that's great.
yeah, and then even beyond that, just Japan and their craziness running an Olympics. It'll be something to really to really witness. So looking forward
It'll
to
be
that.
awesome. Just awesome.
Yeah.
And this reminds me too, if you look at the clock, we're 20 minutes past the hour. And so everybody understand this. I put together 10 stories for each show. Ben and I know, and it's an inside joke, we never get through all the stories. It just never happens. So think of it as kind of a fun homework assignment for you. You can go back and see the ones we didn't talk about, or if you want to revisit the stories we do, that's the beauty of what we call the show notes. So please go and get those. Please access them after the show if you like, and go from there.
Of course. Yeah, and no rush, but we will move on to the next story. And I recall when I first heard this one, we can definitely go over it because I just heard about it in I probably read online somewhere, but when you tell people spiders, they go, well, thank goodness there's none near me. And then you come with this story that says, oh, it turns out they have their own airlines. And it's like, that's not good. So
They're on
please,
March.
story number 2.
This is great. This comes it was a Fortune magazine and was posted on Yahoo Finance. A story by Renee, I'll pronounce it Rents, Reints, and the headline just, of course, grabbed my attention immediately. Spiders can fly through the air for miles using electricity. Study finds, and you go, what?
That's not good.
Well, I don't know. It's bizarre, and there's a great little animation video. They've got the link in the show notes.
Which you're showing
There
on
you go.
the
You're
video
showing it
portion.
now.
So
Great.
yeah,
It's really cute and it's fun. So let's get into this. It says a new study published by the scientists at the University of Bristol proves that spiders can sense the Earth's electric field and use it to fly through the air. What? The process, known as ballooning, allows the arachnids to use strands of silk to float up to, wait for it, 3 miles above the Earth's surface and as much as 1,000 miles out to sea. Ding! Can you believe it? That's just too freaky weird. I've seen orb spiders, right in your backyard, whatever, and they'll send out a strand of web silk and just send it out. I've watched it. Just send it out randomly, hoping it hooks onto some bush or some piece of wood or something, right? And then from there, they kind of do their thing. But this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about using the electrical magnetic field and electric field rather, and flying. Oh, well, and let's go on. This is fun too. I love this part of the article. Charles Darwin first observed the flight of spiders aboard the HMS Beagle, the ship that he was on, of course, in 1832. While at sea, he noticed the ship was covered in webs and found tiny spiders throughout. Here's a quote in his diary. He says, I caught some of the aeronaut spiders, which must have come at least 60 miles from where they were relative to land, he wrote in his diary. Darwin suspected the aerial excursions could be propelled through electric force. Wow, that wouldn't have been my first thought. But the theory had never been proven. Most scientists assumed spiders simply sail on the wind. But this didn't explain how arachnids traveled so far in light wind conditions. I'll add that word there. The new study published Thursday, and this was posted on 6th of July, so it's about a month and a half ago. But the new study published Thursday in Current Biology proves that the use of electricity in spiders' travel. Erica Morley, you're going to love this, a sensory biophysicist. How would you like that as your title? A sensory biophysicist at the University of Bristol led the study that finally closed the centuries-old debate. With captured spiders in an enclosed box, don't you love scientists? I mean, this is just hilarious in a way. With captured spiders in an enclosed box, Morley and her team observed how the spiders reacted to certain electric fields. Spiders were placed on a cardboard strip in the center of the box. When the team generated fields similar to what spiders would experience outdoors, they noticed tiny hairs on the spider's legs called trichobothria.
Perfect.
Try to say that 5 times. Called trichobothria, whatever, stood on end. So the little hairs on the spider's heads stood on end when they introduced electric field, okay? Mm-hmm. It's a sensation similar to when you rub a balloon and hold it to your own hair, right? We've all done that as kids. Of course. The electricity lifts your hair, right? This proves spiders can detect electric fields. The electric fields also prompted the spiders to start tiptoeing or standing on the ends of their legs with their abdomen in the air. So they weren't doing a yoga pose. This all had something to do for, this flight. According to Morley, this behavior is only seen before ballooning. Some spiders actually managed to take off but dropped as soon as the electric field was cut. When spiders tiptoe, lift their abdomen, and release silk, the strands pick up a negative charge. This repels the negative charge from the surface on which the spider stands, providing enough lift for ballooning. Air currents can still play a role in the flight of spiders, but Morley and her team proved that arachnids could fly solely through and it says light of electric fields. I don't think that's what they meant to say. Solely through electric fields, this phenomenon, right? The phenomenon is possible because the Earth's upper atmosphere has a positive charge, while the ground has a negative charge. In stormy weather, this electric field can reach thousands of volts per meter above the ground. Wow. In 2013, Peter Gorman, a physicist at the University of Hawaii, published a study providing a theoretical background for the possibility of electricity-propelled ballooning. Morley's study is the first to prove the theory in the laboratory. So quirky, weird, kind of goofy, but I just think it's so interesting how something Darwin speculated on in 1832 finally gets confirmed in 2018. You gotta love it.
That dude, and honestly, Charles Darwin, the more I hear of him, he must have been the weirdest person ever. Like, people are running around trying to sail a ship, trying to get this guy to this weird remote island, and he's sitting around staring at spiders, going, "Oh, I need to write that down." And he must have been just the weirdest guy. But
well, you can just imagine what the crusty sailors on that ship must have thought of this guy. What's this guy?
It's like, dude, we're trying to do a job here, and you're drawing pictures of spiders. But and so of course, but Charles Darwin aside, I got to say, this kind of raises the question in my mind. The kind of what they're talking about is the same reaction that causes lightning strikes, of course. The negatively charged ions in the the positively charged ions in the air lining up with the negative one in the ground come together really quickly, and everything kind of breaks, and you get a lightning strike. How many spiders do you think get bug zapped by lightning strikes? Because obviously they're using the same principle to fly.
Interesting. Yes. Well, I also thought the bit about how it enabled them potentially to fly 1,000 miles into the sea. And I thought, well, that's kind of disappointing. You make it all the way that far and you drop in the middle of the ocean and you die. Obviously, I would presume they can do this over land as well. But for some reason, the article used that bit about 1,000 miles over the ocean.
Well, 1,000 times, yes, you're going to land in the ocean. But really, isn't it kind of motivational that 1% of the time, you're going to end up in probably my hair on the other side of the ocean? So gross, but also pretty darn cool. And
very cool.
That was a very interesting, different kind of one. So this next story, we're only going to be able to tease it. We are fast approaching a break, but I know that there's some audience members that I know in particular who are listening that have had trouble with their spine in the past.
Amen.
And, spines are a pretty tricky business, when you really get down to it. Who knew that, that nervous system and those little strands running electricity could be so delicate. So story number 3, tease it, and then we'll come back.
Right. When we come back, we'll talk about new 3D printed device that can help treat spinal cord injuries. So if you have a painful lower back, and I just went through a terrible pinched nerve thing just now, finally feeling better today. Listen up for this after the break.
Yeah, very, very well said. And yeah, you can even see some pictures there, folks, if you are simply listening to us on the IRN network. Love you for doing that. And hey, we are a radio show, but this is one show in particular where it really pays to check out the video. So everyone feel free to join us over in the live video feed. So the music in the background means that we're going to take a break. Everyone, stay tuned. More Computer America, more Ralph Bond, more science and tech trend nudes coming right after this.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And yeah, we're talking with Ralph Bond. He is our science and tech trends correspondent. And we are doing a lot of different news stories. Folks, if you miss any part of today's show so far, feel free to go wherever podcasts are heard. And you can simply listen to today's show in its entirety to, hey, just time shifted so that, hey, we work for your schedule. If you can't check us out live, then we highly recommend you do that. And you can find us wherever podcasts are heard, including Google Play, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify here shortly, as well as Blog Talk Radio and Spreaker. So, yeah, with that being said, Ralph, thank you for continuing on with us. And as you said before the break, we were teasing the story about spinal cord injuries. They are common. They are incredibly difficult to solve. But a new 3D printed device, hey, tech show, that's right up our alley. A new 3D printed device could help treat those injuries. So please go ahead.
This is a great story. And by the way, everything went wrong with human beings when we started to go upright. Think of those evolutionary chart things. Mm-hmm. If we had just stayed on all fours, I don't think any of this spinal cord stuff would be a problem.
You should not let evolution tell you what to do. You should not let it dictate who you are. And if you are a quadruped, you live you. You do you, man.
Anywho, and this story really resonated with me, believe me, because I do the show the second Friday of each month, right, mm-hmm. folks? Well, I didn't this month because we had a big road trip from the Portland, Oregon area where I live down to San Francisco and back for a family-related wedding that mm-hmm. we went to, and everything was great. But just the last day of the trip, thank goodness it was the last day of the trip, woke up in the motel room that morning. and I have no idea what happened. I could barely move. I was literally crawling to the bathroom on all fours because my lower back was in excruciating sharp pain. And what, did I pinch a nerve? Did I have a herniated disc? I don't know. Thank God, all this time later, doing yoga exercises and talked to my doctor, and did hot and cold treatment, all this sort of stuff, right?
Right.
Today I'm finally feeling pretty normal, but oh my Lord, it made me really appreciate
and
terrible problem this is.
And just real quick, one of our chatters in the chat room wanted me to ask
Yeah.
you, have you ever had kidney stones?
No, but I understand how horrifyingly
Well,
painful
they're
that is.
kind of asking, could it be that possibly? So just keep an eye on
Oh,
it,
that's
Ralph.
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Oh, so you can have it can express the pain as you think it's your back?
Yeah,
Huh.
exactly.
Interesting.
So keep it in the back of your mind. We're glad that you're feeling
Thank
better.
you.
But
Yeah, tell them thanks in the chat room. Very smart. Very
Sure.
smart. Anyway, into the story. This comes from technology.org. It's a staff-written piece. It was posted the 16th of August. And again, the title is New 3D Printed Device Could Help Treat Spinal Cord Injuries. And this is a really cool story. Check this out. There's a video you can look at and all that good stuff. Here we go. Engineers and medical researchers at the University of Minnesota have teamed up to create a groundbreaking 3D printed device that could someday help patients with long-term spinal cord injuries regain some function. Now, here's the part that it just gets really interesting. A 3D printed guide made of silicone serves as a platform for, get this, specialized cells that are then 3D printed on top of it. So this is sort of a, cells combined with silicone thing. Bear with me. The guide would be surgically implanted into the injured area of the spinal cord, where it would serve as a type of bridge between living nerve cells above and below the area of injury. Wow, this is interesting. Isn't that something? The hope is that this would help patients alleviate pain as well as regain some functions like control of muscles, bowel, and bladder. The research is published online in Advanced Functional Materials, a peer-reviewed scientific journal. And here's a quote, this is the first time anyone has been able to directly 3D print neuronal, I had to look up and learn how to pronounce that, neuronal stem cells derived from adult human cells on a 3D printed guide and have the cells differentiate into active nerve cells in the lab, said Michael McAlpine, PhD, co-author of a study at University of Minnesota, Benjamin Mayhew, Associate Professor of Mechanical Engineering in the university's College of Science and Engineering. I love this kind of collaboration of mechanical engineering with the neurology folks and all these experts coming together. I think this is really cool. Here's another quote from a co-author as well. This is a very exciting first step in developing a treatment to help people with spinal cord injury, said Ann Parr, medical doctor, PhD, a co-author of the study, and University of Minnesota Medical School Assistant Professor in the Department of Neurosurgery and Stem Cell Institute. I would venture to say she's probably a pretty darn smart person.
Read a lot of books.
My goodness. And her quote ends, currently, there aren't any good precise treatments for those with long-term spinal cord injuries. Go ahead.
And just real quick, I mean, did you watch the video that obviously you included with the show notes?
Yeah.
And we just watched it twice because it's pretty short, but very fascinating to see it in action. But all I could think of was, that looks delicious. Like, it looks very candy-like, but obviously that's like the silicon scaffolding that they're talking about. It's like, as far as 3D printers go, it's so minute compared to obviously plastic toys or something like that. It's a very fine process.
Yeah. No, yeah, there's a lot to love about this story. Again, the collaboration of multidisciplinary folks coming together and the expertise they're bringing to this, and using 3D printing at a very a miniature level, as you just alluded to. Oh, there's so many things. There's so many pistons of interest that fire all at once on this one. Goes on to say there are currently about 285,000 people in the United States who suffer from spinal cord injuries. Actually, I'm surprised the number's that low, to be honest with you, with about 17,000 new spinal cord injuries nationwide each year. Now, in this new process developed at the University of Minnesota over the last 2 years, researchers start with any kind of cell from an adult, such as a skin cell or blood cell. Isn't that interesting? Using new bioengineering techniques, the medical researchers are able to reprogram the cells into neuronal stem cells.
I am so happy that we were able to figure that one out pretty early on in the stem cell research process, because obviously the original way to get stem cells, highly controversial. People lost really lost their minds over how how could we harvest these stem cells, and the fact that we're able to revert them from any kind of cell into a working stem cell.
Isn't that amazing?
Again, opens up a lot.
I rest my case. So many pistons of interest in this one article, right? And that being a significant one. Goes on to say the engineers print these cells onto a silicone guide using a unique 3D printing technology in which the same 3D printer is used to print both the guide and the cells. What? The guide keeps the cells alive and allows them to change into neurons. Ding, ding, ding. There's the money shot. The team developed a prototype guide that would be surgically implanted into the damaged part of the spinal cord to help connect living cells on each side of the injury. And there's a beautiful image here in the show notes you can take a look at. I know this is kind of a long article, but I just think it's so important. It's worth doing.
No, it's good.
Here comes another quote from Ann Parr, MD and PhD. Everything came together at the right time, Parr said. We were able to use the latest cell bioengineering techniques developed in just the last few years and combine that with cutting-edge 3D printing techniques. Even with the latest technology, developing the prototype guides was not easy. Quote, 3D printing such delicate cells was very difficult, McAlpine said. The hard part is keeping the cells happy and alive. We tested several different recipes in the printing process. The fact that we were able to keep about 75% of the cells alive during the 3D printing process and then have them turn into healthy neurons is pretty amazing. Amen. If the next steps are successful, the payoff for this research could be life-changing for those who suffer from spinal cord injuries. Closing quote here. We found that relaying any signals across the injury could improve functions for the patients, Parr said. There's a perception that people with spinal cord injuries will only be happy if they can walk again. In reality, most want simple things like bladder control or to be able to stop uncontrollable movements of their legs. These simple improvements in function could greatly improve their lives. So they're realistic. There's, baby steps to get to the big goal here. But wow, I just thought this was so great. Salute to the University of Minnesota. Hooray. What a great line of research.
Yeah, baby steps to baby steps. So, and it's like I said, there are a lot of very interesting things. One thing that really stood out to me was the fact that 75% of the cells were able to be kept happy and alive. That may not seem like a lot, but when you look at the video, you think, oh wow, look at that 3D printer go as it prints like 3 or 4 different layers, and like. You can see at the top right, they say this was sped up by 32 times, by 16 times. Keeping cells outside of the body and, kind of happy in an environment, like in a 2-minute video, not that big a deal. But when it's a 4-hour printing process to make one of these little, even example kind of surgically implanted things, and what if it's bigger? What if they're printing, a different shape? Like, these cells have to stay alive for hours upon hours out in the open air. So very, very cool. And really, I know a lot of people with spinal injuries. This doesn't seem to be for, that nice cushioning that, that really rubs against people and really pinches nerves and things like that.
Right.
But like you said, for people who don't have control over, certain functions or part of their, or even their legs,
yes.
Hey, this could really make a huge difference. So I always like it when spinal technology or spinal treatment come into play, because that's like the thing that we all thought was impossible that we're really chipping away at.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
Right.
Again, that story has so many pistons of interest firing all at once. It's like a V12 engine of fascination.
So, and this, and we're actually going to skip the one. So Israel's planning a trip to the moon. That's great.
That's a fun story.
Yeah. And of course you can check that in the show notes. Now, I wanted to, hopefully within the next 15 minutes, we can get maybe 2 of these stories. Sure. And let's go ahead and talk about this. I believe it's story number 6 about the AI. We talk about AI so much that I really wanted you to kind of touch on this, because artificial intelligence, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, this idea that machines are fed data and information and they output or they can, automate a process. Ralph, I'll just let you know that, maybe over the past couple of weeks or months, I'd say easily 2 to 3 out of 5 guests a week are talking or utilizing artificial intelligence to some extent within their own products.
Yes.
Either behind the scenes or directly they're selling the AI technology itself. It's a big deal. So I really wanted you to touch on story number 5. I'm sorry, story number 5.
5. Yeah, good. Yeah.
I'm sorry, story number 5. And what is this about?
Well, the reason, and you set it up beautifully, because artificial intelligence and related to that machine learning are such intense, but I don't mean to diminish it by calling it buzzwords, but such topics of you're hearing so frequently.
It is undoubtedly, just like the blockchain was a year ago. I would say it has kind of reached buzzword proportions, and there's a reason for that, because if AI is done poorly, and hopefully the article is going to get into this, AI can be a very flawed technology. So even though everyone is claiming to have it, we still need to learn more about it. So
exactly. And so this headline just grabbed me, because of course we all have AI and machine learning on our minds these days, right? But get this headline: AI is hurting people of color and the poor. Experts want to fix that. I thought, well, what are they talking about? This is interesting. It's from CNN Tech, story by Heather Kelly. And go to the site. You can see a video that's embedded in the article. I was not able to get a link, so please use the show notes, go to the site and see the embedded video. It's quite interesting. But I'll give you the story here. It says, new technology brings great promise and as many problems. So great progress, but also problems. Smartphones put access to infinite knowledge in our pockets, but led to the rise of tech addiction. The social media platforms that connected billions of people were turned against democracy, for example, recently, right? And so it is with artificial intelligence, which could fundamentally change the world while contributing to greater racial bias and exclusion. Oh, boy. Okay, let's learn more. Much of the focus on any downsides of artificial intelligence has been on things like crashing self-driving cars and the rise of machines that kill. Or, as CNN commentator Van Jones put it in at a discussion on the topic last week, and the story was posted July 23, what about Terminator, right? Self-aware machines that decide humans are stupid and let's get rid of them. Goes on to say, but many of the researchers behind this technology say it could pose a greater threat to society by adversely impacting the poor, the disenfranchised, and people of color. And I'm sure you're thinking, well, how? Here's a quote: every time humanity goes through a new wave of innovation and technological transformation, there are people who are hurt, and there are issues as large as geopolitical conflict, said Fei-Fei Li, the director of the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Lab. And he says AI is no exception. Now, these are not issues for the future, but the present. AI powers the speech recognition that makes Siri and Alexa work. It underpins useful services like Google Photos and Google Translate. It helps Netflix recommend movies, Pandora suggests songs, and Amazon to push products. And it's the reason self-driving cars can drive themselves, right?
And yeah, and one quick correction: Fei Li is a lady. So yeah, just real quick. So Fei Li, the director of the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Lab, she's a she. So just want to be clear if she's listening out there. So. Oh, Ralph, are you there? Let's see.
Nope, I'm here.
All
Sorry,
right,
buddy.
There we go. No problem.
Talking about bias and so forth. Holy smokers! I just came right out and said, just assumed it was a man.
No.
Terrible, Ralph. Now, see, this is an
just correction.
example of
Nothing to worry
real
about.
artificial intelligence. My wife would say, "Your intelligence is artificial, Ralph."
No, I won't get that far. But please go ahead and continue.
So going on, it says one part of AI is machine learning, in which a system analyzes massive amounts of data to make decisions and recognize patterns on its own. And that data must be carefully considered so it doesn't reflect or contribute to existing biases. Quote, in AI development, we say garbage in, garbage out. Lee said, of course, that's a very old programmer's term. If the data we're starting with is biased, our decision coming out of it is biased. Now, bear with me, it's a long article, but it gets into it. We've already seen examples of this. A recent study by Joe Boumlamwini at the MIT Media Lab found facial recognition software has trouble identifying women of color. Wonder why it wouldn't have trouble identifying men of color. Why just women? I thought that was interesting. Tests by the Washington Post found that accents often trip up smart speakers like Alexa. That I can kind of understand. And an investigation by ProPublica revealed that software used to sentence criminals is biased against Black Americans. Whoa, okay, this is pretty interesting. Addressing these issues will grow increasingly urgent as things like facial recognition software become more prevalent in law enforcement, border security, and even hiring. Many of those who gathered at last week's discussion, the story was posted July 23. The discussion was at an event called AI Summit Designing a Future for All, said new industry standards, a code of conduct, greater diversity among the engineers and computer scientists developing AI, and even regulation will go a long way toward minimizing these biases. Technical approaches can help too. The Fairness tool, developed by Accenture, scours data sets to find any biases and correct problematic models. But by the way, I'll stop for a second. This is a difficult challenge, and you'll see as we go through the rest of this article how that sets that stage. Here's a quote. One naive way people were thinking about removing bias in algorithms is to just, I won't include gender in my models. It's fine. I don't include age. I don't include race, said Ruman Chowdhury, who helped develop the tool. But biases aren't created solely by feeding a facial recognition algorithm a diet of white faces. Quote, every social scientist knows that variables are interrelated, he said. In the U.S., for example, zip codes are highly related to income, highly related to race. Profession is highly related to gender. Whether or not that's the world you want to be in, that is the world we are in, he said. Now, diversifying the backgrounds of those creating artificial intelligence and applying it to everything from policing to shopping to banking will go a long way toward addressing the problem too. This goes beyond diversifying the ranks of engineers and computer scientists building these tools to include the people pondering how they are used. And here's a closing quote. We need technologists who understand history, who understand economics, who are in conversation with philosophers. Wow, that's pretty
Hear that,
poetic.
philosophy students? We need you in tech. We need you.
There's a chance for you. There you
Yeah.
go. Said Marina Gorbis, executive director of the Institute for the Future. Quote, we need to have this conversation because our technologists are no longer just developing apps. They're developing political and economic systems. That's a really interesting thing to think about. That this world of technology, AI related, even things like Alexa and Siri and Google Home and all this, developing new political and economic systems. Wow, that's interesting. These conversations, he said, are essential to ensuring AI does more good than harm. Food for thought kind of article. It kind of goes a lot of covers a lot of territory and a lot of implications and so forth. But I thought it was an interesting tease and a way to kind of think about the impact of AI.
Well, yeah, and again, I'm glad that you really brought that one up because, as I said on the show, we have seen AI being applied to everything from horse racing to identifying cancer to figuring out the electrical grid. Like, there's a lot of different applications you can throw AI at, but not all AI is going to be useful or good or even or even better than no AI altogether. So by you kind of going over this article, it really showed, and I really need to keep this in mind, that just because someone says, "Oh, we're using AI," that's not a magic wand that says, "Oh, don't worry, a computer is thinking for us." No, that's complete hogwash, and it could be doing more harm than good. So,
Right on.
very important to keep in mind going forward. Now, last article, we have like 4 or 5 minutes left. I think that should be enough time to squeeze in the Girl Scouts because, I don't know, but I think in 2016, when last time I went to CES, I actually, the Girl Scouts actually had a booth at CES.
Oh, fun.
And I was like, the Girl Scouts? Like, I'm looking around, there's like Sony, Samsung, and, all these other tech companies. And then there's the Girl Scouts. And it's like, no cookies. Like, what are you doing, Girl Scouts? But I digress. They were there to push a point, and that, hey, the Girl Scouts are more than just cookies. They're actually meant to, show that, provide programs so that girls and young women can really, kind of get some useful skills and some relevant skills. So
absolutely.
Talk about story number 6.
Yes, story number 6 comes from Engadget, from one of my favorite writers, John Fingus. Headline: Girl Scouts add badges for cybersecurity and the environment. So it's cybersecurity and the environment, but it's very interesting. I think the cybersecurity part of it, I think, was what really caught my eye. So this comes from the Girl Scouts press release, so not, or he's based on the Girl Scouts announcement, rather. And it says here, the U.S. Girl Scouts campaign to promote STEM education, science, technology, engineering, mathematics is the acronym, is advancing to its next logical step: even more badges. The organization is introducing, get this, 30 new badges that promise to foster scientific and computer know-how across the Scouts age groups. So don't think this is just for the, say, high school age kids. Younger members from kindergarten to grade 5 can earn badges for topics like cybersecurity, particularly online privacy and safety, and space science, while older Scouts can learn to design and program robotics as well as prepare for college. And regardless of age, they can earn environmental stewardship badges that teach them to care for the planet. There's more. The outfit is now rolling out its previously unveiled National Computer Science program for girls in middle school and above. Likewise, there are 2 leadership journeys that encourage girls to embrace programming and engineering, and a mechanical engineering badge that previously stopped at grade 3 now covers the net 2 grades up, increasing the opportunities to learn about crafting basic vehicles and understanding the physics that guide them. And it concludes, the goals remain the same as with earlier badges. The Girl Scouts team hopes to not only encourage girls to enter STEM fields, but to prepare them for a modern world full of digital opportunities and threats. It's not guaranteed that they will strive for the badges, but at least an acknowledgement that the focus of the Girl Scouts needs to change with the time. So I just thought it was a cute story, kind of fun. And as you say, I'm thrilled and fascinated to hear that they had a booth at CES. Good for them. That's so cool.
Yeah, well, they had a booth, and they actually had another representative there with them, and that was NASA. Like, NASA was actually teaming up with the Girl Scouts to try to get, obviously, girls and women more interested in the STEM field. So, they were kind of pairing up together. But that aside, this particular one, and quite honestly, like with as many employers as I talk to, and as often as cybersecurity comes up here on the program, I'm going to kind of make it as a joke, but I would not be surprised if you went into a workplace that you had to handle sensitive information that the company really wanted you to make sure that you know how to keep, kind of confidential. Then I'm not saying you have to put it on your resume, but if you put on your resume, cybersecurity basic training from the Girl Scouts, like just the fact that you have any kind of pre-exposure to keeping information or keeping yourself safe in a cyber security kind of focus, that's going to be at least something that shows that, hey, I'm not going to click on a random email link. I'm not going to go to a weird web address, that you have at least, been around the block once or twice.
Yeah, no, all good points, really. It's fun, and I'm just salute to the Girl Scouts for taking this effort.
Absolutely. So with that being said, there's the music right on time. And like Ralph predicted at the beginning, I think we did about maybe 5 of the 10 stories. So plenty of more if you'd like to go back and check that out, computeramerica.com, right there under the cheat sheet. So in the meantime, Ralph, if people want to find out more about you, what you do, or your past show visits, where can they go?
It's super easy. Go to your browser and search just using these words, Ralph Bond, B-O-N-D, so my first and last name, and then Wix, W-I-X. And that'll take you right to the link to my Wix-based webpage and so forth. And you'll see the stories about what I do with the show here and what I'm doing as part-time work and all that good stuff. So all about me.
Yeah, and we also have a link to that in the show notes as well. It's the first link that you can click on. It's right there, so
Great.
Super simple. So, Ralph, I want to say I'm glad that you're able to join us this month. I know that you were busy, but hey, that's perfectly fine. And yeah, looking forward to next month as well. So, yeah, thanks for coming on.
All right, always just wonderful. Thank you.
All right, and everyone else out there listening, thank you for joining us here on Computer America. That is this whole week of shows. It's been a lot of fun. Glad that you could join us. Be sure to tune in next week for more companies, more interviews, more correspondence, more fun. Everyone, be good, be safe. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.